Thanks for gathering back together. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. I did. Enjoyed my conversation very much as well. And I was reminded that, training is sometimes about, sitting down and hearing one person, but it's also about listening to each other and learning wisdom from one another. So just to encourage us to keep up spending time in conversation with one another, hearing each other's stories, learning from each other's life experiences. And so that's why we are going to have Joy Gardner come up and share her story. I've been privileged to hear part of it and to appreciate her as a servant of God. So thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Hey,
Joy. And Joy is from Cokesbury United Methodist Church. So yay, Cokesbury.
Thank you, Pat, and everybody else. It is so good to be here. I am the director of singles ministry at Cokesbury, and that's not exactly where I expected to be when I grew up, okay? Sometimes life happens. I was a minister's wife for 35 years, and my minister husband became a husband, if you know what that is. And so I'll say that again. My husband became my husband, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what to do with me because I'd always wanted to be a minister's wife. My church community didn't know what to do with me because they didn't know what to do with a minister's wife who didn't have a minister. And so when I come to share my story, Heidi asked me specifically, can you touch on how your experience as a single parent has helped prepare you to be a leader in ministering with others? For me, single parent ministry, single ministry of any kind is more about healing hearts than it is about fixing situations. I don't know about you. I'm a great, or I could be an addict, you might even want to say, on books. How many of you have ever had a Red Sea situation in your life where the bottom dropped out? Not what you planned? Most singles, especially that are over 30 into 40 and 50, are single not because of choice, but because of circumstance. And it seems like when that one storm hits, when the bottom starts to drop, everything else. In a period of 3 years, I lost my husband, and because I was in a community, a Christian community where divorce was frowned upon, where life gets really messy, go and get cleaned up and then you can come back. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have a home. I lost my job. I lost my home. I lost all my friends. I lost my health. I was diagnosed with cancer in that 3-year period, and my mother passed away as well. So when all that happened, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. But God shows up. And I have a pastor friend down in Atlanta that says, when God shows up, he shows out. But it's not in the way that I want it. How about you? And so this journey for me has shown me, or is showing me, because I'm not good at this yet, how to live life in the both and. Because I can stand here, I've been divorced 6 years now, and say to you that divorce was the worst thing that happened to me. And it was the best thing that happened to me. I can say that my cancer was the worst thing that happened to me. And it is the best thing that happened to me. So when we learn to look at the both and we learn how to actually hold both of those, then we can live through life and have peace and contentment and joy in every situation. Because the fallacy is that if I get through this storm of divorce, then I'm good to go. I don't know about you, but there's always another storm on the horizon. So it's not about getting through this storm. It's about learning how to be in the storm and still stand up. And sometimes I do it pretty ugly, but I still get back up because God is there giving me the strength that I need. My journey has helped me in this ministry because I became who I am walking beside now. It is not those people over there. When I look at anybody, I ask myself, how are we the same? Henry Nouwen says in The Bread for the Journey that I first have to find my own poverty. Because until I can find my own poverty, and when I can deal with my own pain, then I can deal with yours. And dealing with yours is sometimes, as Job's friends did the first 7 days, just sitting in the pain and crying. Silence is violent. When I had my cancer, I would see people coming down a hallway, and I'd see them turn the other way because they didn't know what to say. And I know they loved me, and I know they meant well, but they hadn't dealt with their own pain, so they couldn't deal with mine. Probably the two greatest teachers in my journey has been, first of all, my divorce. And because God took away, sometimes his best blessings are the takeaway blessings. He took away all those things that I mentioned before. And I ended up in a halfway house with women recovering from drugs and alcohol. I do not have a substance addiction. By the grace of God, I do not have a substance addiction. But I ended up with these women as a spiritual director, dorm mother. But for the first 2 years, they taught me more than anybody has ever taught me. Recovery, the 12-step recovery program, it's not just for alcoholics and addicts. They have a different language. You can say, oh, I don't have an addiction. Let me ask you, are you broken in any place? Do you have a stronghold in your life? Do you have sin in your life? Excuse my language, but you're an addict. And the 12-step program that I got to see and came to my life and showed me how to put all of these principles that I had learned in church and are true, but somehow they kind of are out of here until it hits you in the face. And the 12-step program showed me how to live life on life's terms, because the Red Seas come, the storms come, and I am, step one, powerless, and my life has become unmanageable. And step two, I hope that there is somebody greater than I am that can help me in this. And step three is, I'm going to let God do it. I'm going to let God do it. And so as I walk through my journey, God brought to me people, strangers, total strangers, to minister to me and to give me hope, to teach me new tools. And now in these last 4 or 5 years at Cokesbury, I've been able to give back. And that is the essence of the recovery program. And that should be, though I don't, and listen to me, I don't want to should on you, okay? I don't want to S-H-O-U-L-D. But until we start giving back what we have been given, we are stuck. Every time God partners with me so that I can walk with somebody and they can be healed in their life and they can find freedom from whatever their stronghold or their sin or their addiction is, it restores me. It redeems my story and brings healing to my life. At Cokesbury, we have a divorce recovery that I really understand what divorce recovery is all about. And when the people walk into our building, and sometimes they drive around 3 or 4 times, or they don't even come in till the next session, because going through a church door feeling like a failure is something that takes a lot of strength. But I understand that, and I can walk with them. I teach a class called We put it in the church bulletin, Love Things, but it's based on the book, How to Avoid Falling in Love with a Jerk or a Jerkette. And we get them in there thinking that they're going to look at somebody else and say, you're the jerk, you're the jerkette. And all of a sudden we say, okay, which one of these jerk or jerkette characteristics are yours? Ah. And I have to start looking at myself. But we pull out a whole new toolbox so that people can learn how to be healthy, how to live in the both and of life, how to hold both the sadness and at the same time, out of the same event, the same situation, find peace and joy. I believe God allowed me to go through this journey for one reason, for many reasons, but one is when I was, for the 6-year-old little girl inside of me who was abused by the minister of her church, and no one spoke to me when they found out about it. It was a non-event. And through my divorce and all of the other losses, God showed to me that he cared about that 6-year-old little girl, that he loved me, and he was willing to let me suffer through the hard things, the things that I loved the most, a husband and a ministry and people, and that's who I was, but it really wasn't, because who I am is a child of God who loves people, who loves to be involved with God. And God gave me that freedom to say that. I couldn't say to you for 48 years that I had been abused. I could not ever say that. There was so much shame. And now I know that it doesn't matter what I've done, and it doesn't matter what's been done to me, that God loves me, and he loves all those around me, and he wants to partner with me. And through the suffering is where I am connected in my ministry. I'm doing the best ministry I've ever done because I'm broken. Because I'm broken. And it's never too late for our kids. I have grown children. My daughter was getting married in the midst of all of this. She got married the 2 days before my 3rd round of chemo. No hair, except a wig. But God is gracious because my eyebrows didn't fall out until the day after. So all of the wedding pictures, I still have eyebrows. Isn't God great? Isn't God great? And for me, it's the little things that God, in this vast universe, can keep my eyebrows in until the day after the wedding, that makes me know how much God loves me. And so I am privileged to partner with you. And we at Cokesbury, and I personally, if we can do anything to walk alongside of the people that are in your ministry who are hurting, I am a wounded healer. That's what I pray to be. And I thank God for the suffering, and I hate the suffering, and I thank God for the suffering. And so I partner with you on that. So God can be glorified, and we can tell those who are hurting that there is somebody greater than comes against us. Thank you.
Okay, that was quite an emotional experience right there. Joy, your courage is a real inspiration to us. And so thank you for that holy moment. What a great gift she's given us, right? Praise the Lord. Her vulnerability. And I think somehow that made us stronger. And as we go out to minister ourselves, you know, starting with Nikki Marsh's testimony and Sheila's testimony, and just everybody that we've been hearing from, what we're trying to do is open up and really get an inside peek at what we're doing here. This is not about a business, is it? It's about what she said in the very beginning, healing hearts. Healing hearts. So it's very sacred, very holy work that we're about here. This work of God in the lives of people. Holy, sacred God work, right? And we must treat it as what it is. So thank you, Joy, once again. Praise the Lord. All right, we're going to transition now to talking about leadership teams. Okay, and I'd like for you all to come up. I've asked Pat, Art, and Angela to step up here. And I'm going to facilitate and sit on the panel both. How's that? This idea of, well, we understand single-parent ministry. We understand that it's needed, it's necessary. But see what I have to deal with?
He's a pastor, by the way.
You can hit him over the head with that. What, Pat, would you turn around?
He's bigger than I am. My mama drowned all her dumb kids.
This idea of, okay, I understand what you're talking about with single-parent ministry. And it sounds good. I don't know what he's doing, by the way. This is not scripted. But how do you actually move beyond today and go back to your church and work with the pastors, work with lay people, keep yourself motivated, do the right thing, build a team, a high-impact team that's excited about ministry, keep that team going, keep that team focused. Wow. It almost sounds like you'd have to hire someone, pay them $100,000 a year to do that. That you need advanced training. What he's trying to show me is, as I wax eloquent, I
have to pee.
Don't you love it? And he's a pastor.
Methodist, by the way.
Can you imagine how interesting his sermons are? Pat, tell us the name of one. You told us the name of a couple of these sermons that you're preaching.
Currently, the series is called Shape Me, Lord, Building a Life That God Can Bless.
That God can
Bless.
bless. Okay, but you told me about one that was just, oh my goodness. But anyway, he's a very innovative guy, and you can tell he's already being obstinate here. All right, but getting serious, Pat. Does anybody out there struggle with the idea of, okay, I get what you're saying, it sounds important, and maybe even I've tried to get this going at my church, but really it hasn't been all that successful. Would anybody want to say that's, okay. And I think what we're going to do now is we're just going to take a few minutes to expose you to some concepts. Now, this is one I want to be careful to say, that we understand that what we're talking about really is its own weekend of training, its own 3 weekends of training. Okay, this whole thing of how to build a very vibrant leadership team to lead your single-parent ministry at your church. That's a big, big topic. That's a mountain. Tonight, we're just going to look at this afternoon, we're just going to look at a few ideas that we feel like are important as you start. So these are startup ideas, startup concepts. And we'll probably peek at a few down the road concepts, but just to mention them. You'll find all this in your book. It starts on page 31, Leadership Team Development. So we're going to be pivoting off that page, okay? Now, again, we will entertain questions briefly. Write those questions down, and none of us is going anywhere afterwards you can come up afterwards and talk to us. Let me make one final comment before we actually engage our panelists. Coaching will be available after this is over, okay? We are recruiting and training some coaches that are going to sit down with your church and be available. Not to tell you what to do, but help you stay focused, help you move along, help you do what you want to do. So just keep that in mind. There's a couple of outcomes I'd like for you to walk away from this. One, I'd like you to get the value of a team, why you need to use a team. Two, I'd like you to know what a team does, a little bit about what they do. And three, I'd like you to figure out, yeah, I probably want to sign up for a coach. Be a free coach. There's no cost associated with that. And it's going to be, one of us in this room or somebody else that we recruit to be a part of this. But so I'd like you to understand a little bit what a team is, why you need to form a team. Because if you're anything like my church, we get an idea and we want to just go do it. Anybody have that? I don't need a team. Let's just go do ministry. Right? Anybody ever run into that?
Da, 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 da,
all right, here we go. Okay, Pat, I love you, brother.
da, da, da.
Pat has been my friend for how many years, Pat?
About 15.
15 years. All right, here we go. Pat, you got to turn around, brother. Seriously.
All right. Why am I sitting like this?
Yes, good.
Well, because number one, you can't put square pegs in round holes.
Oh, good.
Number two, who's to say that these other two people are sitting in the right direction?
That's good.
There was a pastor who was playing racquetball, and it was very, very good. And they were having a contest. And while he was waiting, he had just finished playing, and he was waiting, and he was getting ready to play with somebody else. And he turned around and he saw a woman walk by that he recognized that he had married her and her husband 14 years earlier. And golly, he got so excited. And he said, hold on a minute. He told the guy, he says, I'll be right back. I know we have to play. I want to go see her. And he ran and talked to this woman and came back. And he told the guy he was playing racquetball with. He said, I married her 14 years ago. And he said, I hadn't seen her in 14 years. And I just wanted to go talk to her. Well, the guy that he was playing racquetball with didn't have a clue that he was a pastor. But he assumed that the guy knew that it wasn't his wife, that he was a pastor. We assume so many things when it comes to doing ministry. We're going to get started right away. We have an idea. Let's jump in and start doing things. And a lot of times in all churches, it don't make any difference who they are, we end up just grabbing who we can grab. We can't assume just because we announce, hey, we're going to start a single-parent family ministry, that people are going to line up. Okay, Angela's already found that out. It just doesn't happen. So there's a lot of things we have to overcome, and that's why I was doing this, because I think it's very important to understand if we're going to build a team, we have to first start with what the vision is and then start small. Not big, but start small. And speaking of small.
All right, you can tell we've got lots of leaders on the stage right now.
You got two pastors who are pretty windy.
Woo! Here we go. All right, thank you, Pat. Okay, so again, pivoting off page 31, and you all just track with us, take notes. This whole idea of why form a team anyway? Why should we focus on a team? Why should we slow down to go far? Why slow down to go far? Okay, just want each of you all to spend a couple of minutes giving your thoughts on why, 2 minutes, Pat, on why you think it's so important to slow down, form a team instead of just rushing out there to get this thing done.
I want to have a team because, number one, I don't want to do all the work. And number two, appreciate that God is going to I'm trusting Him to bring the people into the ministry that He wants there. He knows who those people are. I don't. and also trust that He's going to bring the people with the right spiritual gifts that are needed for this ministry. I know what my spiritual gifts are, but I need, God needs to bring the whole body with different spiritual gifts around me to help fill these teams, to make our teams be what God knows that they need to be.
Okay, and I'm going to interject a few questions for each of you as we go along. Angela has spent months and months and months trying to form a leadership team at First Baptist Concord. It's been a real up and down journey for her. It's been lots of blood, sweat, and tears. We meet, a couple of us pastors meet with her every 2 weeks, and so we've been able to track her highs and her lows. And we set some goals early on that were more aggressive than we were able to meet. And as it turns out, what you're saying is God ended up sending the right people versus some that we had. So this whole idea that the right people may not be immediately apparent to you or evident, and it may take a while for them to surface, and that we give God time to allow them to surface. We don't say you are immediately on the leadership team. We're looking for candidates for our leadership team. You sit down, you have an interview, and then possibly you can be on our leadership team. But we say we're not in a hurry. We're not desperate. We're not in a hurry. God has who He wants. Good. Pat?
Let me just add something
Sure.
else. And sometimes that gets challenging because I know for me, taking on this ministry, it's real easy to just, because you want to fill those positions, because you want to get the help and the relief, to reach out and sometimes move beyond the Lord. And, sometimes invite people that, God doesn't intend to be there. Sometimes we see people and think they would be great at this. Maybe they're involved in other ministries, but yet God has someone else in mind. For example, our prayer coordinator wasn't even at our church. For months and months and months, I was looking for a prayer coordinator, and I was like, God, why can't we have someone just to lead up our prayer team? Well, we had to wait for God to bring her to our church in November. So it's all about waiting on His time and not just the person we dream about and say, oh, that looks like you. I think I'll take you. Doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. Every ministry needs a foundation. I mean, there's a song that we sing, the church's one foundation is Jesus Christ our Lord. Every ministry needs a foundation, and that foundation is its leadership team. A couple things that come to my mind immediately. Number one, we were talking at lunch about the 20% that do 80% of the work. Okay, this opens the door for people who may want to serve but just have not been given the opportunity. And when I was talking about assumptions earlier, we can't assume that everybody understands that as a Christian we're called to serve. Mark 10:45, Jesus said, I came not to be served but to serve. So when we open the door and invite people to serve, we're opening the door to invite people to conform to the image of Jesus Christ, which after all is what it's supposed to be all about. James says, be not only hearers of the word, but doers of the word. So when you build a team, you're building a team not just of hearers, but of doers. Number one. Number two, it prevents one person from getting so overloaded and overworked that eventually they burn out and quit. Okay, and we've all seen that happen in the church. Number three, the only person that had all the gifts and all the graces was Jesus Himself. As great a person as Andy is, and I've known him for years, Andy he has more passion. He's just an incredible human being, but he isn't Jesus. He doesn't have all the gifts. Andy's good at building teams and round tables and calling people together. Why? Because we all are gifted. And just like a good salad is not just lettuce, or a good soup is not just a noodle. A team pulls together all kinds of different gifts and graces and makes it more holistic.
Very good.
I agree with what's been said. Working in teams is biblical, quite frankly. Somebody said a couple of times since we've been here that we're not created to live life alone, or something like that. And that's exactly right. Adam and Eve, it was the fact God created the family unit to be a team, basically. Moses and Aaron, Joshua. So you can go through Scripture, and even through, Christ worked through a team of disciples. And when He sent disciples out, He sent them in teams. Sometimes they were teams of two. but teaming is very biblical, very, very biblical. And Pat just hit on a key point. And I worked 35 years in private industry, building teams and leadership and that sort of stuff. And I have never met a single individual who was in and of themselves gifted and talented enough to do whatever they were about on their own. They always needed somebody else. They always needed teams. So you can't do single-parent ministry by yourself. I can't do it. We've got to build a strong team, and it takes time to do that. Jesus took 3 years with the disciples. So it takes time. It really takes time.
Excellent. So this idea that we, step one, have to be very committed to building a team to do this ministry. We have to put that as our top priority. We want to pray through and be deeply committed to forming a leadership team. How many of you all say, I'm not going forward without a team? All right? Okay, good. First goal accomplished. So what does a team look like? What makes a team? Now, I would encourage you to look at the books on your shelf. Ask your pastor. Do what reading you already know to do about teams. There's probably something you've got access to. We will be providing in your leadership resource from Dropbox some suggested best of books and workbooks and resources, including videos on teams, because we're all processing how to build teams. We're all building teams right now and learning like crazy. A lot of that stuff, it's out there. A lot of it says the same stuff. So you can do your own work on learning about building teams. There's a lot of good books out there. I'm working through something called The Secret of Teams by a guy named Mark Miller. Art and his team over there at West Park Baptist are working through Leading from the Sandbox.
Yeah, by adding to Leading from the Sandbox.
Leading from the Sandbox. Phenomenal book. And a lot of us have different high-impact team kind of stuff that we've got access to. You can do your own work. You don't have to wait on us, okay? There's a lot of good stuff out there. Again, though, our commitment to you is try to sort through that and give you a short list of some of the best stuff that we're accessing. And also, we want to, we'll talk more about that later. What makes a team? Okay, let's talk for a minute just about an actual team itself. And you can follow along with us there. In your opinion, let's start with Angela. Angela, what do you think makes a good team?
Well, definitely that you've got a team that can work together, and just like it says, the trusting relationships, and something that I've realized in building my teams, the importance of having that time to get to know each other, fellowshipping together, and and not just seeing what are their spiritual gifts, what they can do, how they can perform, but just getting to know each other and really having that bond together in love and honesty and caring about each other. I think it definitely starts there.
If you'll flip the page to 32, number 5 there, how to work as a team, it says essential team building activities: eat together, play together, pray together, serve together. Angela has just mentioned the eat together, kind of get to praying together. She's got her team now coming together to hang out and pray and eat together, trying to build friendships. How important are those friendships?
Extremely important.
Because it tends to make folks really want to be together. They like being together, and therefore they're far more productive.
Right, and you want them to have the kind of relationship with you that they can tell you, this is working, this is not working, we need to change this, and you don't want your team to be all about this is what the leader says, this is what you do, but a team that people have active participation and can share with you, and let you know when you need to make changes.
Excellent. Pat, I know we've talked there about relationships. What about some of these others?
You have to have a vision, a clear vision, and everybody has to see this is what the end product is going to look like, and then the members of the leadership team all have to buy into that vision. They may not all see it the same way, which is what you want anyhow, but the end product, they all have to agree. This is what we're trying to accomplish, and we're going to do it together. So it's like when we talk about a team, it's like 6 horses. or 4 horses pulling the old stagecoach on the black and white cowboy movies. The horses are all going in the same direction. And that's what I see as a leadership team. You have the vision, and you're all pulling in the same direction.
You know, I'm going to thank you, Pat. He's mentioning some things that, you know, I'm looking through your manual here. You know, if you look at page 34, Single Parent Family Ministry Leadership Team, this is the animal that we're talking about. If you look on page 34, it's got the why, and then the leadership team will be trained to, should, time commitment. But I'm looking for that vision. I know we have it in the Dropbox. There we go. If you look at page 41, there's some more. I think Heidi's going to talk a little bit about this later. But there are some words there on vision. And then also on page 42, you can see a little bit more on vision, just for some words that you may want to steal for your own situation. Then also, I think on Dropbox, we have put up some examples from other churches of vision documents. So if you're like me and you struggle a little bit for vision, you know, what is vision? What's my church's contribution? I mean, vision sometimes paralyzes you. What do you mean by vision? We've tried to help you here with just some words and some big picture ideas, a framework on some of these other pages. So become familiar with, like page 42 goes over the big picture, a strategic model for single-parent family ministry. You can look down through there on page 42 and see, in page 43, you can kind of get your head around what are the components of single-parent ministry. And then vision is getting at, well, what's your church's role? Is there any one church going to do it all? No, you're called, based on who God sent you, to zoom in on something specific. And that's where we get at vision. Art, go ahead.
On page 31, which says what makes a team effective, and then we're talking about that, being real clear about shared vision. It's got to be a compelling vision, by the way. Being clear about how we're going to work together, which builds trust. And I got to, when Joy was telling her story, it hit me, one of the critical factors of building a strong leadership team, especially in what we're about to go do, is to know each other's story. Andy and I, when we put the Knoxville International Network together several years ago, we took the leadership team that had been named very carefully and prayed over to Cedar Springs Retreat Center up on the mountain. And we spent a day and a half together working through these issues, clarity of purpose, what do we expect of each other, how we're going to work together, those kinds of things. But that night, we just told each other's story. We cried together, we laughed together, we ate together. But knowing each other's story, and I learned things about Joy, and we've worked together for a while, that just enhanced my sense of connection to Joy. So sharing those stories takes some time, but it will gain you so much ground in terms of progress and productivity. You'll be absolutely amazed. You've got to do those kinds of things to really get off to a good start.
Excellent. So the commitment, oftentimes with a team, we're tempted to just get down to business and get going, kind of shortcut the relational piece of it. Is that the message you're hearing from here? You're hearing just the opposite. Slow down enough to get to know each other. An overnight retreat can be very helpful. You know, you set that afternoon, that night session for just going around the room telling stories like Art said. Never regret, you'll never regret the relational work you do connecting your teammates together. They won't naturally want to do it. You'll have to set the example. But my goodness, the payoff is extraordinary. Last thing on team there, you can see the A stands for active participation by all group members. How many of you all been part of a team where someone just didn't participate? Right? Is that a team? Not a team. So team leaders go out of their way to make it possible for and encourage active participation from every team member. If we don't see that, then the team leader is able to suggest that this team member might be more engaged or excited about another ministry or something, but this team needs active participation by all team members. So
Andy, a critical piece of that is you will often, a lot of teams will say, well, so-and-so is our team leader, so they look to that person for everything. Wrong, absolutely wrong. Every one of you, as a member of a team, have a leadership responsibility. And there are times when you're going to need to step up and provide some leadership, whether it's you have the expertise in whatever that is, you're noticed something's not going right on the team and nobody else has said it, you got to say time out. So no matter who's the formal leader, you all have leadership responsibility to make sure that team functions well, moves forward, and so don't ever abdicate that leadership responsibility of your own.
Very good. We're going to move on. Do want you to pay close attention to the acronym TEAM. We've talked on established purpose and goals. None of us wants to be on a team that has no goals. Dead end team. We want to set goals around a clear vision. Oftentimes that's where the wheels come off, though. We don't know how to execute. That's why we want to follow up today with some real hand-holding to help you execute that vision. Okay? Moving on. What does a team do? Let's talk, and this is the Allen that you see, by the way, here is our own Art Allen. Art has spent years and years as a consultant helping businesses and churches form teams to be more productive. That's why we've got his stuff here. And these other two are very, very active as well. Okay, let's just look down through that list, and then you all comment. Angela, looking down here, what does a team do? Clarify the mission, vision, develop strategy. Is there any one of these that's been maybe a touchy, kind of hard for you, something maybe you skipped over now that you say, no, that's pretty important, or anyone that you might just want to emphasize?
Well, I think I could say that in the beginning, because I began sitting in meetings with you in the round table, over a year ago when we were talking about, all of this stuff, the visions and things like that. And then when I became the director, I told Andy, I said, I've been hearing this, but all of a sudden when you're the one that starts fleshing it out, it's a whole lot easier to listen and go, oh, that sounds good, we can do this. And Andy says, okay, now here's the hard part, fleshing it out. And, it sounds really good, but how do I actually get this vision out there? How do I, make this happen? And so, and just like he has told me, you're the one to keep the vision alive at the church. And I've, what I've done is just, okay, as I've had meeting after meeting after meeting, after you read this stuff over and over and over, and you begin to present it to other people, then you really get more of a sense of, this is how we're going to flesh it out. But it takes a lot of just hanging in there and, keep reading it and keep taking it in, and then the Lord just helps you begin to flesh it out step by step, because it's easy to look at the big picture and get overwhelmed and think, how can I do all this? But, in my inadequacy, allowing the Lord to be adequate to just help you take that vision step by step in His way and in His time.
Let's just run, Pat, where you're next, but just run your eyes down through that list, though, on page 31 in terms of what does a team do? Clarify the mission vision, develop strategy around that vision, set some goals, implement, execute is everything, execution, monitor it, assess it over time, is it doing what you wanted it to do, create momentum, and care for one another. You can see the essential critical components or the work of a team. Take that away, how far does the ministry go? It dies, doesn't it? So that is the function, the core function of your leadership team. Again, if you'll turn the page, remember we have the job description, ministry description of leadership team over there on page 34. Single parent family ministry leadership team. There you can have a beginning model of what it might look like. Okay, Pat, anything in particular jump out at you there?
Yeah, the monitoring. I think one of the most important things is once we have the vision and we have our team in place and we start working toward that, and the word vision to me means the finished product. Okay, if we're going to do this, what is our end goal? What does it look like? What do we want it to look like? But then I think along the way we have to continually review. So critical. Are we accomplishing our objective? Is this turning out the way we expected? Do we need to make changes and adjustments? So I think a periodic review is critical in the success or failure of whatever it is that we have decided to do. And maybe the strategy was good to start with, but as we've learned, a lot of times things evolve like Miss Pat was saying, out of this came something else that was even greater or even bigger. So I think continual review on a periodic basis is extremely important.
Can we, and I haven't asked you all for this, so I'll talk a little bit so you can be thinking. Can you give us an example of monitoring or assessing something? You've set a vision out there, and your leadership team goes off and does it. What would be one example maybe of something that you would want to pay attention to as you implement single-parent ministry and you monitor over time? Can you think of any example?
A specific example right off the top of my head, I can't. However, when you set your goals for the team, here's what we want to accomplish. Make sure you define what impact you expect that to have. Specific impact. Do we expect this to, when we were talking about divorce, marriage, and family one time, we were saying the impact we want to have is to reduce divorce by 20% over the next whatever. But be real clear about impact you want to achieve, and then you can measure and monitor against that impact. But the impact has to be measurable.
Okay,
Has to be
and
measured.
that's great. Measure is the key word. So, for instance, we wanted to change the culture as a simple example, when folks walk into our church, single-parent families, were they going to get connected to a caring community at that moment? When they walked in, how are we going to greet them and then connect them to a Bible study or a small group or something? We had no way of knowing. That whole thing was broken. So we talked about it, but there was no system and no way we could measure. All right, this month we have shaken the hand of, this many single-parent, how many single-parent families who walk in our door actually get connected to a small group, caring group. That's something we could measure. Say our goal would be 100% of those that walk in our front door actually get greeted well and taken and integrated into a small caring group that cares about them. Simple goal, something we can measure, something we can monitor and get feedback from.
Yeah, we've put focus groups together, for example, to get some sense of what we might go do. Focus group of single parents, for example. Well, if you decide to do something based on the focus group, do that, come back to the focus group 3 or 4 months later and say, where are we? How are we doing? So it's another way of just
That's
monitoring
excellent.
that.
Okay. Let's repeat the question.
Review takes place, because you have that goal, but you start down the road and see that God is leading you in a different direction. You wouldn't know that unless you stop to say, where have we made progress in what we had intended to do? So that periodic review will identify that, and then you may have to change depending on where God's leading you. But you had to have a starting point and an ending point. Every trip has a beginning and an ending. Now, you may get a detour in there somewhere, but you have to have that starting and ending point to begin with. God doesn't operate in a vacuum. We have to have a plan, okay? And as a matter of fact, I believe Scripture says that God tells us to establish our plan, but He will direct our steps.
The question, very good answer, and a very good question. How tied to our goals are we? We set those goals, that vision initially, and do we ramrod straight through, come hell or high water? We will do this. What degree of flexibility? How flexible are we? And so the answer, of course, is establish these periodic reviews. Be very Spirit-led. This is a prayer-bathed journey. Prayer-bathed journey, and we constantly get feedback from those that we're working with, get feedback from the Lord, and we move forward based on the plan that we believe He's given us. Do we go after a vision that we believe God hasn't given us? No. We believe God's given us a certain vision, so we're starting out with His vision, then we move forward on that, and we adjust our steps as He leads us. But my goodness, we believe we're starting with a God-given vision. We set out a plan to execute it, trusting that He can steer the ship as we go. So you've raised a great question. That was a perfect answer. So did you want to comment on that or not?
I wanted to go back to when you had mentioned about the church culture.
Okay.
Can I speak to
Sure.
that? Andy had challenged me to as far as one of the things to do to help changing our church culture was just to go in and meet with all the pastors. And this was something that I did. And, just to raise awareness of what's going on in single-parent family ministry. First Baptist Concord is a very large church, and we like to think that all the pastors and everyone in the church knows what's going on within the body of Christ, but everyone's busy in their own ministry. So what I did is sit down with all the different pastors and just said, number one, some of the pastors that, didn't know me, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and this is what our visions are, and shared the vision with the pastors. And, can you help me identify leaders for our leadership team, volunteers, and also, can you send me single parents? I know in the student ministry you deal with, you have families, and, the children's ministry, and can you, help connect me with those single moms, single families as well? And as a result, I think this has gone a long way with helping us in our church culture, especially with our welcoming team, where we're, trying to be, every week extremely welcoming in all of our programs, situations that we can, but just making the time to go the extra steps to meet with the leaders of the church to say, this is our vision, this is our goals, work with us, connect me, and, just let me know how I can help you as single-parent families as well.
Let me say something to you. Yeah, that word measurement is so critical, I think. If you can't measure what you're doing, then you don't really know what you're doing. We have an after-school program that in the fall, we're going to put into a system where the tutoring we're doing with the children now, we're making more of an emphasis on tutoring, and we want to be able to measure how well the kids are doing based on our tutoring. And where's that measurement going to be? The grade reports every 6 weeks. If you can't measure your vision, your ministry, somebody said earlier of all the people that were coming in that they were giving to, now a certain number of those people are starting to give back. So just like Andy was saying, the number of people coming in, how many of them are actually being connected into the church? You have to find a way to measure everything you do. And Art's been doing consulting for 35 years, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've always heard him talk about. How do we measure whatever it is that we're going to do? So that has to automatically be built in. And then I wanted to say one more thing, too. We're all so excited about this ministry. All of us are. And I mean, God knows there's 15,000 single-parent families in our area, so we have plenty of opportunity. But I learned a management principle from my oldest daughter when she was very small. When we'd go visit her grandmother, her grandmother kept all her canned goods underneath the sink in the old days. And so Heather would take them out and stack them one on top of the other. And then when it got tall enough, it would fall over, and she'd laugh and start all over. What a great management principle. Start small. Start small, start slow, and build.
All right.
And I think that's critical.
These two guys are trying to get really practical on us, and I love that because on page 32, how to build a team. And if we'll rush along here, we'll spend 3 or 4 minutes on that how. I know you want to get to the how, okay? She's given some recruiting tips. He's talked about starting small, and they are right on the money. Those are some key things that, honestly, we didn't know when we first started First Baptist Concord. We started out trying to get a big old team formed. I mean, we did. We went after, a whole bunch of people right off the bat. We were going to form this big team, and, we had to really shrink it down and begin. We started out focused on mission descriptions. We ended up focusing more on passion and building from there. We'll get to that in just a second, okay? I'd like to finish up, though, on page 31. What makes a team effective? What makes a team effective? Now, that's such an important question. What will make your team really work? Productive. Most of us, many of us, maybe not most, but many of us come from committee kind of churches, or we've never been part of a real team. And so we're not sure what a team feels like, what a team looks like. How do you build one? How do you keep it going? Art, would you talk about how, what makes a team effective?
Okay, you see a lot of the things there. I would encourage you to add these couple of things, and then I'll give an example. Add clear roles to under what makes an effective team, expectations, and skills. Those are three things that aren't there that are crucial. When you use an example, you're going on a journey on a bus. Make real sure that you agree on the destination. Make sure you agree on the destination. That's the vision and so forth. Make sure you identify all the seats on the bus. What are the roles that are necessary in this team to make this successful? A leader, a recorder, prayer coordinator, whatever. Make sure you've got those roles identified. Make sure you identify and God sends you the right people to sit in each of those seats. Once you've got the right people in the right seats, then agree on how you're going to work together, play together, and live together on that bus, on that journey, in terms of how you work together as a team and so forth. And then how you're going to then identify all the stops along the way. That's the goals. And identify how you're going to celebrate. Those are just some of the summary, if you will, of these pieces in what that journey can look like for your team.
Okay, so Art has attempted to give you a metaphor. Put your head around that. Climb onto a bus. The bus is going to go somewhere, some city. That's the vision. You're going to make certain stops along the way. Those are milestones, things you're going to accomplish by a certain time. You've got to make sure that everyone's sitting in the bus. Who's going to drive the bus? You know, where's the different folks going to sit to play the different roles, to make sure who's going to serve the refreshments on the bus and who's going to lead the games on the bus trip and who's going to, do what on the bus as you go to that city that you're headed to. So love the metaphor. Sometimes it's helpful to take a big complicated thing like building a team and vision and boil it down to a simple metaphor. So we're just hopping on a bus and going to a city. That's all we're doing. Okay, we're going to take certain steps along the way. We're going to make sure everybody's in the right seat, and there's lots of good camaraderie on the bus. We're going to eat together on the bus. We're going to laugh. We're going to be together. We're going to work through our issues on the bus. How many of y'all been on a youth mission trip? That's a lot like what we're talking about here. Climb on the bus with a bunch of youth and go to Belize, Okay, let's keep going here. I know, yeah, I've got it. Yep, I was given a few more minutes by my precious sister.
Oh.
All right, we're gonna stop there. What makes a team effective? Vision, prayer, relationships, trust, commitment, personal development. I do want to mention personal development, personal care, your own reading as a team leader, your own time with Jesus. Is there anybody you answer to? Angela meets every 2 weeks with two of us, the family pastor and myself. We help her debrief. She comes in with an agenda. We work through the agenda. We help her make sure she's fully supported as she walks through this journey, okay? Her personal development is extremely important to us, okay? She goes down, a lot of bad things happen, okay? Of course, we care about her. All right. Who serves on the team? We're almost done here. We're almost done. Give us about 3 more minutes. Who serves on a team? What do you look for? What do you look for? Okay, if you can imagine the water, an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg out of the water, what's mostly underwater? The character. The character. That leader has to have character. What's above water will be the skills, talents, abilities, that kind of thing. What's underwater, mostly what you can't see, the character. Have to have leaders who have character. Okay, people you can trust, people reliable, people who love Jesus, good, dependable, reliable people. Passion. Talk a bit about passion. How important is passion in comparison, say, to them having just the right skill set?
Well, I'm a very passionate person, and when the Lord calls me to do something, He gives me the passion to go along with it. And so, in me personally, if I don't have passion for it, then I need to step back and see and ask the question, why am I here?
Talk about passion, though, in terms of recruiting. For instance, we started out recruiting the ministry descriptions. We wrote a bunch of ministry descriptions, and we'll give you all those. We can put those, if you'll remind me, we'll put those in Dropbox. A lot of good ministry descriptions, well written to recruit the different positions on a leadership team. And we hurt ourselves going out trying to do that. What we learned is, and we talked to some consultants who told us, build this thing around passion. Find some good people who care a lot about what you're doing. Obviously, we need people who can handle themselves, who care about teams, and who are somewhat management-based and have some experience and who have a certain skill set necessary for a team. But really, you're looking for, first and foremost, you're looking for who really has a passion for some reason around that issue. Okay? Other things in terms of just how to build a team. Just give quick advice. Anybody want to, who should not be on a team? This thing like start small. Any other advice you want to throw out there in the last couple of minutes?
I would just encourage you to, and we've said it over and over and over, God knows who He wants on your team. God knows who He wants on your team. You don't necessarily. You may have somebody come to you and say, I want to be on your team. Well, let's pray about it. Well, what if God gives you a sense that I don't believe that person ought to be on that team? Then I think we need to trust God to let that person know they don't need to be on it. That's the way I've worked, and it works every time. So just trust God to send you the right people and give you the wisdom to know the ones He wants on there.
Good.
And I think the team, you have to know, you mentioned already the skills. You have to know, like Angela, she needs certain people that have certain abilities, maybe the same that she has or maybe different. And I think you have to know what skills do I need to make this team work, too. So that's learning more about the people, their stories individually, and how each part can fit together to make the whole.
Excellent. Any last comments, Angela?
Something that Eugenia said to me, if someone comes up to you and says, well, I'll try it, I'll give that a try. Well, I want to kind of back up and, again, take that into prayer because, we try different types of cereals, but, that's not what we're looking for, to go back to the Lord on that. Not necessarily go, okay, well, you go ahead and try this leadership position. No, that's not what we want.
Good. And I'm going to draw your attention again to that page 34, where a single-parent family ministry leadership team. Look down under the commitment, see time commitment there. We're looking, it's probably good to ask for a 1-year commitment. You want them to attend some training. You want to get that. If you don't put training down on a ministry description and you try to recruit, they're not going to expect to go to training. You want to put that in there whether you train them or not. Now, you will be training them, but you want to put that down. A retreat. I always like to put in a retreat expectation on a time commitment. Because honestly, if they're not willing to go away on one retreat that first year, they're probably not who I'm looking for. I've gotten to the point where I'm not desperate. I want the right people. How many of y'all had ministry leaders come and go and crash and burn, and it's just more pain than it's worth, right? We need the right people. If they want to go on a retreat, get to know each other like Art said, and spend that time learning and dreaming together, the chances of success. And then you can see the rest. Just look that stuff over. All right, let's give these three a hand. All right. We realize we've just barely scratched the surface with you, and we do apologize for that. We didn't want to give you more to think about than, you needed. We wanted you, again, to realize the value of a team. You got to do things through a team. We wanted you to realize what a team does, and finally that you might want to sign up for a coach. And so let me remind you that we will be offering a coach that will come to your church and sit down with you and help keep you on track and bring all this stuff back up again. Okay? Heidi, can I transition back to you?